Tawawa House once stood at the center of the old Wilberforce University campus. The massive two-story frame structure served as the hotel for the Xenia Springs Resort, which occupied this property in the early 1850s. In 1855, the Cincinnati Conference of the Methodist Episcopal Church began negotiations for the purchase of Xenia Springs to establish the Ohio African University. The resort, also known as the Tawawa Springs, provided an ideal setting for the new university, later renamed Wilberforce University for the British abolitionist William Wilberforce. The school opened its doors in 1856 to more than 200 students, many the daughters and sons of Southern planters and their slaves, as well as black residents of the local area. The property consisted of 52 acres, allowing for future expansion. The Tawawa House was converted into classrooms, dormitory rooms, faculty offices, and a chapel. According to Daniel A. Payne, a founder of Wilberforce University, the property was desirable not only for its physical space and natural resources, but its prime location.
It is situated in Greene County, Ohio, very near a good turnpike road, about midway between Cincinnati and Columbus, and near a railway.
With the Civil War causing a decline in student enrollment, the first university failed in 1862. The following year, Bishop Payne purchased the property on behalf of the AME Church. Payne became the first African American to lead an institution of higher education. In a few short years, under Payne's leadership, student enrollment increased and the debt was nearly erased. Then, in mid-April of 1865, disaster struck. While students and faculty were in nearby Xenia, celebrating the fall of the Confederacy and the end to the Civil War, Tawawa House burned to the ground. Occurring on the same evening as the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln, arson was suspected, but nothing was ever proven. With the help of extensive fundraising and contributions from both black and white churches, a new brick administration building was erected on the site of the razed Tawawa House. The three-story structure was dedicated on June 20, 1878, and was named for James A. Shorter, an AME bishop and co-founder of Wilberforce University. Shorter Hall featured recitation and lecture rooms, art and music studios, a chapel, library, museum, and separate reading rooms for women and men. Upstairs were 5 dormitories with sleeping accommodations for 80 persons. The women slept in one wing, the men in the other. The basement included a kitchen, pantry, storage rooms, a dining hall, laundry, and sleeping apartments for staff. In a little more than 4 decades after its completion, disaster struck again when fire ravaged Shorter Hall. The loss of Shorter Hall in December of 1921 was a devastating blow to the university, its finances, and the community. In her book, Pen Pictures of Pioneers of Wilberforce, Hallie Q. Brown recalls hearing the alarm the evening of the fire. The old bell in the tower rang violently. From blanched lips the cry came, "Shorter Hall is on fire!" Again the bell pealed out on the frosty air. It rang its own requiem, sounded its own death knell. Then, in muffled silence, the old bell fell not in haste, but story by story, as if loath to leave its habitat of many a decade. The next May, a campaign to raise the $272,000 needed to build a new building was launched. The new Shorter Hall would be larger and designed to meet the enrollment and program needs of a growing university. Completed in 1924, the new structure included a large auditorium to seat 2,000, 26 classrooms, a dining room, dormitory space for 440 women, and administrative offices. The first Shorter Hall is noteworthy for one of its residents, the black scholar W.E. Burghardt Du Bois. Du Bois stayed there during his brief tenure at Wilberforce University from 1894 to 1896. While here, he prepared for publication his Harvard dissertation, The Suppression of the African Slave Trade to the United States, 1638 to 1870. The work, a critical examination of U.S. participation in the Atlantic slave trade, became the first volume of the well-regarded Harvard Historical Studies series. While at Wilberforce, Du Bois witnessed firsthand the conflict that would later influence his famous debates with Booker T. Washington, founder of the Tuskegee Institute. That conflict occurred as Wilberforce's combined normal and industrial department was developed to teach students practical skills, even as the original liberal arts program desperately needed more resources. From their inception, African American institutes of higher education were forced to decide how to allocate scant means toward agriculture and industrial job training or toward a classical liberal arts education. The Wilberforce experience helped shape Du Bois' position. While Washington famously argued that freemen should learn trades at institutions like Tuskegee, Du Bois countered that African Americans should be free to pursue any avenue of advanced learning that they chose. In his Wilberforce University commencement address in 1940, Du Bois acknowledges his strong ties to Wilberforce, recalling, "I have heard its name since I was a child." Du Bois left Wilberforce, his first university-level teaching assignment, after 2 years. He published over 4,000 articles, essays, and books in his lifetime, and is now remembered as one of the nation's most important public intellectuals. While his career began here in the small community of Wilberforce, Du Bois will long be remembered throughout the world. In 1982, the old Wilberforce campus was designated by the Ohio General Assembly and the United States Congress as the site of the National Afro-American Museum and Cultural Center. With the move to the new Wilberforce University campus, Shorter Hall was closed in 1995 and demolished in 1999.
The podcasts are a project of Central State University archivist Sheila Darrell and English professor Amy Hobbs Harris, and funded by the Central State University Office of the President and Office of Sponsored Programs and Research. Visit the university website at centralstate.edu.